Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Shabbat Show. So sorry for our delay today. We had a couple of technical issues that, thank God, we were able to work through. And we are with you today. We're with you now, and we have an incredible show coming up for you. So stick with us. Thanks for being here. And we look forward to spending the night together. Tonight, we're going to be talking about something that is on the minds, I believe, of all of us, especially now. The world, thank God, is opening up. As all of the restrictions start to roll back, we are now getting back to life, getting back to travel, getting back to traffic. I was in Lakewood this afternoon. My Waze told me I'd be home in 2 hours. Over 3 hours later, we got home. It's traffic again. It's going and coming, managing life, kids, work. We're back in this world of having to make everything balance. What we're going to do tonight is, if you're coming in from the north, from our partners and friends from Canada, you still have a couple more months from what we understand the lockdown, but you still have this issue as well. It's the issue of multitasking. A lot of things demand our time. How do we balance it all? And we got a show all about that tonight. This time is a commodity that we just can't get our hands on. We look at some people that somehow figured out how to do so much, and we look at them with disbelief. How do you manage it all? And that's the question we're going to ask to some people that are incredibly busy tonight. So stick with us. We've got a great show, of course. We've got Kahoot tonight, so please feel free to get ready to go. Get your Kahoot app ready. We have a little bit of time for it. I'm just getting you prepped for Kahoot, and of course, we want to hear from you. So feel free to give us a shout out on Zoom or on my Facebook page. We'd love to reconnect to our community and wish you a Shabbat Shalom. Okay, let's get going. Our first guest is an incredible individual. Dr. Daniel Roth is with us. He joined the New Jersey Retina in 2000. He graduated from Yeshiva University in New York City, where he was valedictorian. He received his MD from the Yale University School of Medicine. He's a clinical associate professor of ophthalmology at the University of Medicine and Dentistry of the New Jersey Rutgers Robert Wood Johnson Medical School. He's on the medical staff of Robert Wood Johnson University Hospital, New Brunswick, and the Monmouth Medical Center Southern Campus in Lakewood, New Jersey. Dr. Roth has been elected by his peers for inclusion in Top Doctors and Best Doctors of America and has received awards for his scientific achievement. Dr. Roth has published more than 80 papers in peer-reviewed literature, as well as numerous articles, textbook chapters, and scientific abstract. He's learned in prominent yeshivas in Montreal, New York, and Yerushalayim, and received his rabbinic ordination from the previous chief rabbi of Montreal. He has co-written 2 monumental books on Jewish law and regards to it. If you're exhausted just listening to that, he's living it. Dr. Roth, thank you for joining us on the show.
Charlie, thank you for having me.
It is an honor to have you. And we've known each other for a long time, but I didn't know you did all of this. Well, you come across so cool, calm, and collected. I didn't understand the extent of what is pulling at your time constantly. So let's just begin a little bit with this idea of pressure. You're a doctor, and doctors, I think, are unique. In other people have this as well, but doctors have a unique pressure in the fact that they're dealing with people's lives, with health. So share with us a little bit about how you begin to manage your time to accomplish what you're doing with all of your responsibilities.
Well, it's interesting because going back, even reflecting back in the past, when I was a kid, I always wanted to be a doctor, even from my youth, maybe because I loved my creative nutrition, I liked the sciences. And then when I got more into learning, I wanted to be involved in learning and Torah, and it was a big dilemma. I went to speak to a lot of rabbis. At the end, I decided to go professionally into medicine, but I always wanted to be involved in learning. And in teaching on campus, I was involved giving different classes and things. When it came to medicine, it's overwhelming. You have to know so much. I remember on one medical school interview, they compared it to standing in front of a fire hydrant, turning on the hose and saying, okay, swallow. There's so much information being bombarded on you, and you really have to know it, or at least as much as you can in order to make good decisions. I guess I thrive on the idea of being kind of like a captain with people coming with problems and trying to figure it out using the intellectual and emotional connection with people in order to try and take care of them. So there's a certain adrenaline intensity. And, sometimes, especially these days, it's not like in the olden days where you just had a few patients, and you had time to see them. Now it's all about volume. There's a certain amount of pressure about seeing a lot of people. I mean, I'll see as many as 50, 60 patients in a day.
Wow.
It's a lot of patients. And yet at the same time, each one is in front of you, and that's all that exists when you're there. I guess time management is about, at least for me, is about being in the moment, at the moment, and being completely at the moment, and then compartmentalizing so that when you're in the next moment, now you're in that moment. So the base medicine, I try and be completely there. When I get to the office, I'm completely, not only with the 15 patients that are, or a few patients that are waiting, but with that patient who's sitting in the chair.
So let's delve into this for a second, because this is very wise advice that's very difficult, right? The idea that part of time management is allowing yourself to be fully invested in the things that you're doing so that you can be more successful at the things you're doing, so you don't have to do them again, or you don't have the issues that come with not being fully present where it is. And it's an incredibly important point that I'm happy you brought up, because I want to double click on it with you. How do you do this? Meaning, so many times in my life, let me give you an example of my religious practice, right? There are many times in my life where I am praying. I believe in God. I believe in prayer. I believe that prayer helps me get the thing that I have to do after prayer. I believe that to my core. And I know that if I pray properly, what will happen in the afternoon will be different. I believe that. And yet, even if I'm pumping myself up on the way into the synagogue, and I stand before the creator of the universe, somehow I just thoughts, and I get pulled.
Totally.
So what techniques do you use so that when you're standing in front of a patient, you're not thinking, I got 10 more, I got to give a class, oh my gosh, my wife asked me to pick up. What are you using to get your mind fully sort of enveloped in the moment?
So I would say that what allows a person, or allows me at least, to concentrate on the moment is there's a problem solving, a person's questions. It's something that's drawing all of my intention or brain power to address it. And truthfully, if I'm distracted on something, even that I'm studying, then I may lose the moment. And I wish I couldn't say this, but I'll have to completely agree with you, Charlie. I'm in the same situation when I go to daven, and because I feel badly, because sometimes I'm involved in a lot of good things, but because I'm involved in good things, and they may be mitzvahs, they may be taking care of patients, they may be, taking care of my family, they may be some important research project, but to make sure that doesn't jump into my head during davening is hard, because during prayer, when you're standing in front of God praying, it's really sometimes difficult to be focused on the attention of what you're doing with the cognition that God is standing in front of you and you're talking to him.
Right.
And sometimes taking even a few moments, a few seconds of pause during prayer, sometimes like I'll say a longer silent prayer, the silent Amida that we stand when we stand in the synagogue and we say that prayer in shul. And it takes me longer, and I sometimes feel guilty because, like, my son or somebody thinks, oh, he had a lot of intent because his prayer was longer. Sometimes because I was distracted, and I need a few moments, a few seconds to pause and get back into the focus and concentration to have a cognition that I'm standing and having conversation with God.
Let me ask you one more question, because there's so much that I want to ask you about, but I really want to double click on this point as well, that we had mentioned this in your bio earlier about this balance between you're learning Torah, you are ordained rabbi, you've written books that are Torah books. In life, sometimes people think you have to make a choice. And if you go into two different areas, you can be a jack of all trades and a master of none. You're spending time in the spiritual world, the world of Torah, the world of Jewish knowledge, and in the world of medical knowledge. How do you find that balance? How do you switch, so to speak, on and off? If those are switches, even between spiritual pursuits and more, I guess, material or scientific pursuits.
So the one point is, like we said before, being in the moment when you're in that moment, And the other is being willing to really be busy. My day starts at 6 a.m., goes till midnight. There's not a lot of downtime. Now, part of that 6 a.m. to midnight is spending quality time with my wife, spending quality time with my children, studying with my son, trying to be together for dinner time, different things, but it's all scheduled. My biggest problem is I don't really schedule enough exercise. And because it's not scheduled, it doesn't happen.
You got to see a doctor. You got to have a doctor tell you that.
Yeah, seriously. But I have to schedule, because if I don't schedule it, there's always 10 things that I don't get to. So it's important to kind of make sure that you have an organized run through your day. But to be honest with you, sometimes in my life, some periods of my life, I couldn't do as much. In the middle of medical school or training, I definitely made it my business to study Torah. But sometimes I'd be on call for a 36-hour shift during residency, and I'd still go and I'd study with my study partner at night, but I'd be falling asleep. But I still felt I'll go. Even though I'm falling asleep, I want to be there because it's important to be there. But at other times, like now, I changed my schedule where I took a bit of a cut in salary and I created more time to study Torah in order to be able to accomplish more in those areas. And I also make choices. I made choices to do a little less research, even though I've done a lot more research and publications in the past. I still am involved in it. I still teach medical students, present at research meetings, but not as much as I did or would have, because that's a choice I made to do a little less of that and maybe a little more on the religious side.
That's a very good point, by the way, and how I want to sort of make sure this is clear, which is there are also times in one's life where they have to sort of go to one area or the other. And so sometimes in life, you find yourself in a situation where, let's say, work isn't as demanding. Use this as an opportunity to delve into other areas. And sometimes in life, work is more demanding. Don't worry, there will be a time towards the future where you may have some more time. And so not only is life right in front of us, it's also dynamic into the future. And so just to be open to changes of situations and schedules as a way to try to accomplish more in life than just down one path.
Exactly.
Amazing. Doctor, thanks so much for joining us and all that you do, for shining your light on this world.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure. Great talking to you.
Thank you. And that was Dr. Roth. Incredible stuff. And really to be able to take in all the things that he's been saying, especially being able to be focused in the moment. This is a critical piece of time management, wherever you are. You don't have to be as busy as him. Wherever you are is where you are. And the way you get there is your mind is trying to figure, like you already said, he's problem solving. He's thinking about it. Right? That concept of being fully invested by trying to be one with what's in front of you. Just standing there is not going to work. He's got to be here, organizing and prioritizing. So we're going to build into all these different ideas and these concepts throughout the show, but I want to sort of take each piece as we meet each person. I want to just play for everybody a promo for our next guest. Check this out.
What allows me to sleep at night is when I ask myself, have I done all that I could do for you as my client?
We handle thousands of cases every year. We have a dedicated staff of attorneys here.
Everyone has one goal, and that is to ensure that our clients are happy with the performance we put forward.
Our goal is not simply to just charge you a fee, make one appearance, and be done with your case. Instead, I'm looking to get the best result possible. That often means going back to court numerous times.
People hire us to do the best, and that's what we strive to do every single time.
We're constantly improving just to make sure our clients are getting the most attention, that their questions are being answered, and that their case is being handled the right way.
We have literally hundreds of reviews of clients that have stood up to testify to our good work.
It's just a tremendous opportunity to help people when they've run out of answers.
It's very satisfying to know that I was able to really put the client in a much better position and hopefully help them in the long term.
We've helped thousands of clients, and we stick to our guns, standing by our work and just making sure that we do best by our clients.
Our next guest is Adam Rosenblum. He's the principal of Rosenblum Law, a legal practice with offices in both New York and New Jersey. He frequently volunteers to mentor lawyers, business owners, and Jewish organizations, and is part of the Jewish Entrepreneur Network. He serves as the executive director of the Center for Jewish Outreach which funds Jewish programs at several universities and has served staff of over 15 Jewish experience trips. He teaches several Torah classes each week, primarily to alumni of his trips. He's also served on the board of various Jewish communal organizations over the past 12 years and is a volunteer EMS dispatcher for Hatzalah of Passaic Clifton. Lawyer, Hatzalah, he's got his own nonprofit. As you can see, busy. I had a chance to catch up with him early this week. Check out this interview. So you're an attorney. You have a nonprofit organization. You are involved in Hatzalah, which is a volunteer ambulance corps, and probably many other things that you're involved in. Is that somewhat correct?
That is correct. Teaching, birthright trips, J-Inspire, boards of various organizations.
So just like overarching, how do you approach time management?
I have no problem telling a client, I'm here in the office till 6 o'clock. That's business hours. Please contact me tomorrow, or I will get back to you at 9 or 9:30 tomorrow. And I have people from the community that are texting me all the time. Hey, I got a traffic ticket. Hey, my kid got in trouble. Hey, can you help out with this, that, or the third? And I say, now I'm off. This is off office hours. And I'd love to be able to help you, but we're going to do that tomorrow. And I think that a lot of times people have a hard time doing that.
So what I'm hearing from you is that if you learn how to re-put the boundaries down, right, that we once had, you'd be able to, in many ways, accomplish different diverse things, because you're not going to let everything bleed into everything else. You'll actually put the boundaries on different aspects of your life.
You set that expectation at the beginning. I'm very reachable during the day. Of course, if there's an emergency, you can text me or whatever the case may be, or you can call the office and the answering service will pick up the call and then that will be forwarded to my cell. But, outside of that, I think for a lot of times for some people, like everything's an emergency,
Right.
Oh, I've got to reach you about this thing. But I think probably 99% of the time, it really isn't.
How do you advise, is it business owners and entrepreneurs or whoever it is, in terms of how to structure their business in order to help, I guess, get more done?
If I'm able to delegate and have other people that help me out with certain other things, then that can free me up to do some of the passion projects, right, that we've talked about at the beginning of the interview. And then systemization, every business really can be systematized. It really is the mantra. And if a person gets to the point where things run as systems, then things just become a lot more efficient. And it's not just like, oh, what am I doing? How do I do this? Oh, I have to remember, I have to reinvent the wheel every single time. And, that's something that can really help. Shabbat comes on Saturday every week. It's not like, oh, next week, let's make Shabbat on a Tuesday instead of on a Thursday. No, like it's like clockwork. The holidays go according to a certain schedule. And even though there definitely is room to color within those lines, and maybe two families may do certain things on Shabbat very differently, but there are other things that are just part of the system, and you just can't decide in your own. Oh, I'm just going to decide to make Shabbat on a Tuesday this week because I feel like it, or Passover falls out, right at the same time as the football season or whatever thing, and so I'm just going to do Passover the week before. We're going to get it done, and next week I'll be free to, attend the sports game or whatever.
But here's one thing that I want to ask you about, which is going to be people's blocks. It's everyone's block, which is when I give it to you to do, you're not going to do it as well as me. Like, I know how to do this, and I've been doing this for so long, and that's why I can't do that, because I'm doing this. And if I give it to you to do, you're not going to do it as well as me, because you don't know as much as me. Maybe you're a new intern. Maybe you're younger than me. Maybe you're a different family member than I am, right? You're not better or worse, but I know how to do this thing. So how do you coach people to be okay with a product that's not going to be as good as the person, to have them recognize that the time that they get is more valuable?
Yeah, so I get that all the time. And certainly as the senior person in the firm, being the founder of the firm, doing this for 15 years, people call on me all the time, this question, that question, whatever the case may be. But yeah, if I didn't delegate and I didn't have associates and assistant support staff, people in different countries doing stuff for me, clearly there are going to be deficiencies that come up. But I think really a lot of that, first and foremost, boils down to ego. And I'm sorry to say, maybe it's like a therapy thing, a person needs to, because at the end of the day, to think that you are indispensable, irreplaceable, you're the best, you're the smartest, nobody can do it as well as you. I think to some degree that might be an ego problem. That's number one.
Right.
And once a person gets over that and realizes, well, maybe that's actually not true. Maybe I just hired a person that's actually smarter than me, quicker than me, and can do something even better than me. And I want to tell you something. There are people in this office that have a better conversion rate than me on the phone. When people call up and we do that, we do the pitch and whatever. And I think I'm a great salesman. I've spent a lot of time honing that craft, but there are definitely attorneys in this office that do it better than me.
Mm-hmm.
And when I brought them in, they didn't know anything. And I trained them from scratch, and we had meetings and trainings and all these types of things. So I think a lot of that is learning to put your own ego aside. And then the second piece of it is what I call, sometimes good enough is just good enough. And I think for some people that are perfectionists, it's much more difficult for them to be able to get over that. But if you're not a perfectionist, which I think is probably a good percentage of people, then it's really just about trying to make peace with the fact that, maybe it's not going to be exactly perfect. Maybe there will be a mess up or something like that, but most of the time it's not going to be catastrophic. And not only that, a lot of times the other people won't even know. You may be a bigger critic, the biggest critic of your people's work than anybody else who's going to come into contact with them.
I feel this is not only important for people that are involved in business, it's also people involved in their personal lives. Sometimes there are people in our personal lives that are not delivering the results that we'd like, not because they don't want to be helpful, because they don't know what to do. And many times we're too busy to train people and to teach people. And so we think it's because we're too busy, but we don't realize that the time you spend investing in someone else will ultimately pay back dividends in the future.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. And I also want to add that I think a lot of that also is trying to give people the confidence, if they don't have it already, that they can be independent and they can do it. I mean, think about parenting, right? It's almost like the parent that's sitting there helicoptering over the kid. Oh, no, you color this way, or, oh, you do the assignment that way, right? We don't want that. Ultimately, we want our kids to be able to be independent. So we provide them the training, we send them to school, we role model, we show them what it means to be a good person, to be a good Jew. But really what we want is we want them to be independent. And so I think that that's really what it's like here. You do good training and ongoing training, and our doors are always open for questions, etc. But ultimately, we want people who can swim. Once we teach them how to swim, they can swim on their own. And then we just give them we invest in them at the front end, which is what you're talking about. But ultimately, if we've done a good enough job screening, hiring, training, then ultimately these are people that are going to be able to work independently, and we're not going to have to babysit them. We're not going to have to helicopter them, which I think is also a big problem in the workforce. It's really, again, the ego, the perfectionism. I got to, look at every single thing this person is doing. Not a single shred of paper is going to go out of this office without my review and my okay and my initials. I think that's crazy. I mean, why hire people if you're going to micromanage them? Right. It makes no sense. So
that was really important stuff as we build this list, if you will, of ideas that I want all of us to walk away with at the end of tonight, of tips for how to be better at managing time. Time is something that either controls us or that we will control. And we began to discuss of being in. What Adam brought in many other, and including many other points, was this idea of delegating. But when you delegate something to other people, you have to train them. You have to build them. You have to give them confidence. I'll just do it myself. Nah, you don't control your time when you got to do everything yourself. That concept in our lives, in our business, and in our personal lives, things that we're doing that other people can be doing with us if we just give them the opportunity to help us, saving us the time. Tonight, we're going to continue doing our Shabbat Shalom. So please feel free to reach out both on Zoom and on my Facebook page. Let me just read a couple before we get to the next piece here. Andrea Weinberg from New Jersey, Shabbat Shalom. Devorah Millman from Boston, Shabbat Shalom. Tibet Zuckerbrow from Smithtown, Shabbat Shalom. Debbie Laufer from Massachusetts, Shabbat Shalom. Janet Michael from Calgary, Canada. Look how far in the country we've been going right now. And Tarita Rubin from upstate, Shabbat Shalom. We'll get to Zoom next. I want to share with you this incredible video we found from H.com on learning how to juggle. Check this out. Interesting concept, no? If you watch that video, I hope that you get, if you want to go to ish.com to watch it, if you watch that video, it's interesting how in life, if we don't focus on certain things, then we're out of whack. Time management isn't just doing anything I want in a certain way. It's also choosing what it is that I'm doing. It's being mindful of the choices that I make to make sure that I feel from the inside that I'm balanced. Unfortunately, tonight, because of some of our tech issues, we're not going to be able to go to Kahoot. So we apologize for my Kahoot enthusiasts, and we will most definitely play Kahoot again in the future. I want to get to our next guest, and it is a guest that I am looking forward to. I got to tell you personally, I remember when our next guest was appointed to be part of the previous administration. I remember watching the appointment and just being so proud to be part of the same nation. Our next guest is Mr. Mitchell Silk. He is the immediate past Assistant Secretary for International Markets in the U.S. Department of the Treasury Department, which is a presidentially appointed and Senate confirmed position. I remember watching the confirmation. I remember following the confirmation. In that role, he has designed and implemented the signature U.S. whole of government infrastructure finance initiatives to assist foreign partners attract private investment for infrastructure. He was a senior member in the U.S. negotiating team in the China trade talks and also led initiatives in financial regulation innovation, export credits, and developmental finance. Moshe, as he's known at home, was a central member of the Treasury's emergency response team to address the economic shock from COVID. When you saw what was going on in the government, well, guess who was on the inside working on it? It's our next guest. He worked tirelessly to save hundreds of thousands of aviation jobs, help support the recovery of the American economy. And prior to that, Mitch served on the Americas and Asia senior leadership team of Allen and Overy's premier global project finance practice and built the firm's U.S. China practice and U.S. private investment fund practice. Moshe lives in Borough Park and along with his wife Yocheved, is the proud parent of 8 children. He's been active in Jewish communal matters for decades. While living in Hong Kong from 1992 to 2005, he served as chairman of the Jewish Burial Society. He was also chairman of the Agudas Yisrael of America's Pro Bono Legal Services Program, a nationwide network of over 400 lawyers. He will be publishing the first complete English translation of the Kedushas Levi, a classic Hasidic commentary on the Bible, later this year with Art Scroll. Check out this video on Mitchell Silk. And welcome to the show. It's an honor to have you on.
Hi, Charlie.
It's great to have it. I got to tell you, just before I begin asking questions, I just got to tell you how much I enjoyed your confirmation. I watched it closely. As they say in Yiddish, I shept nachas, and I felt like you were like representing all of us. And so thank you for who you are and what you did and all the work that nobody knows that you did during this whole COVID crisis.
Well, it's so kind of you, and I'm glad you enjoyed it. I don't remember much of it other than the fact that I was schwitzing quite a bit.
Well, we were cheering for you from all over the world.
Thank you. It's so great to be here, and it's so great to finally meet you. I similarly and reciprocally follow you as well.
Oh, thank you. I'm honored by that. You were a partner at a global elite law practice with over 2,500 lawyers who did multi-billion-dollar transactions with teams in 5 or more countries. You're on the U.S.'s most senior financial diplomats tasked with further U.S. financial growth and stability issues with senior foreign government counterparts in international organizations, and also had the responsibility of implementing $94 billion in CARE Act relief for the U.S. airline industry, impacting about 700,000 jobs. And you're writing 5 books and you have 8 children. All right, so tell us a little bit about either how many are you out there, or how in the world do you get this all done?
Well, you know, there are 2 answers to that question. If you ask me, there's only one of me. Those around me, given my schizophrenia and other issues that I suffer, tend to think that there's more than one of me. And I think the answer to that is going to stay between myself and my therapist. And that's a little bit of a joke to get us rolling, but it's a great question. And I really want to echo a number of the points that Dr. Roth and Adam made already on prioritization and on delegation. And I thought I would just run through a couple of points relating to those issues and just relating on how we manage with reference to the teachings of our sages. I mean, at the end of the day, this is not a new issue. If you take a look at the Ethics of Our Fathers, which was written many years ago, long before our time, there was a rabbi called Rabbi Tarfon who was spoke about this issue when he lived over 2,000 years ago, when he said that the day is short and the task is abundant. So it's really not a new issue at all. And the way that I have found best to approach the challenges of multiple pressured tasks and priorities at one time is to focus on 3 things. Prioritization, we've heard about that already. Putting yourself in a good environment and surrounding yourself with good people. And thirdly, remembering that the sky is the limit, remembering that we have a purpose. And it's really the push of remembering for me that I have a purpose is what keeps me going a lot of the time. On the point of prioritization, you know, I have a daily practice to take stock of matters. And again, the Ethics of Our Fathers. It's a great title. I recommend it to everybody that's watching. Tells us that the learned person takes first things first and last things last. So what I do at the beginning of every day is I make my list of priorities for the day, and I work through them. And I constantly find that I have to regroup during the day in order to ensure that I'm staying on task and that I'm keeping up with my priorities. My second point of surrounding oneself with good people and putting oneself in a good environment, 2 different aspects of the same issue, each with their own dimensions, but there cannot be enough said about being a good and a nurturing leader, and one that has the trust and security so that one can delegate. And so I am so with what Adam said and all of his views. Without that, we just simply cannot make it. And the other dimension of that is to surround oneself with good and smart people. King Solomon, walk with the wise and you'll be wise. I would not have been able to achieve half or a quarter of what I have done and what you referred to without my team. And I think back to the time when we were managing the crisis within Treasury. And, you know, I just want to throw a couple of numbers at you and at the listeners, because it was crazy. The pandemic hit in the middle of March, complete disruption to the global economy. March 27th, after 10 days of very, very intensive, nonstop, literally no sleep negotiation on the Hill, the Secretary Mnuchin, settled the terms of the CARES Act. And on March 27th, 2020, the president signed the bill into law. A little side point on the 10-day issue. My secretary went up to the Hill and he negotiated and he brought down the law in 10 days. Took Moses 40 days, okay? Lahavdil, without making a comparison. But that act, the CARES Act, required the Secretary of the Treasury to do a bunch of things. And one of the things that it required him to do was to get $78 billion out the door under very pressured circumstances. We had 5 days to publish rules. We had 10 days to get the first dollar out the door.
Wow.
And I literally
Wow.
did not sleep. And so to put these points of prioritization and delegation into action, we sat down before we started and we slowed down in order to speed up. And we went through a whole prioritization exercise. It was a very accelerated prioritization exercise in order to set into place our infrastructure and all of the principles that we would use to guide the programming, because the programming, the infrastructure, the people did not exist. And so I just can't emphasize enough how important prioritization is. Surrounding oneself with good people from top to bottom. The secretary, the senior leadership of Treasury was extraordinary. I and those that worked with me and under me would not have made it without such great leadership, including that of my undersecretary and great friend, Brent McIntosh. But it's really the people that were working with me in my office and under me. I had a counselor, Dan Katz. I had an executive assistant, Talia Rubin, who were my front office. And we had a legion of extraordinarily dedicated career officials who really pushed through and got us to the end. Bottom line, we were able to address the needs of 700,000 workers. The final point that I'd like to make, Charlie, is that on purpose, I think one thing that keeps me going is a little mantra that I have, which is the sky is the limit. And what I mean by that is that we that live as Orthodox Jews, we have a force above us that dictates a bunch of rules and strictures and customs that we follow and that guide us in our daily life. And if we follow those rules in the right way, we are pursuing a loftier and a larger purpose. When I walked into Treasury every day of the week, I was noticeably Jewish. I wear a black hat. I wear the suit, black suit, white shirt every day of the week. I have other attire that identifies me as Jewish. You and your listeners will identify me by my mannerisms and by my language as Jewish. And I knew that every day of the week, every moment, every decision, every action meant a reflection in one direction or another direction. It meant that I was either sanctifying divinity or I was doing something indifferent. And so that was an extraordinary push point. I finally just come to a great motivator, which I think really gets to your point of how we deal with time management. And I want to do that by referring to a wonderful lady that I never knew, but who was the mother of the rabbi in Hong Kong. You mentioned that I lived there for 13 years. So Rabbi Mordechai Afson has been in Hong Kong for over 30 years. His mother, a woman, Chiena, came to America from Russia. She spoke a little bit of English, but with a very heavy accent. She had 15 children. She ran the school kitchen in Detroit, and she had 5 other communal jobs. And she used to say 2 things that I think are wholly relevant to this discussion. One, first thing she said was, if you want to get something done, go to the busiest guy in town. And secondly, in response to people who marveled at how she was able to pull it together, do all of her communal work, run the school and its kitchen, and keep a household of 15 children, she would, and asked her how she could do it, she would respond very simply, in Russia, they didn't teach us division. They only taught us multiplication.
I love it. I love it. It's such great point. I mean, really, so much to digest. I'd like to, if we can, just the few minutes we have, to delve on one of them. They're all worthy of an hour-long show into themselves, but there was one that I really feel that I'd like to explore with you just for a minute or two. It's the idea that you're sanctifying God in your work, because you're not a rabbi. You didn't walk into the White House as the clergy that walked over to the secretary and said, "May God be with you. You know, good luck and Godspeed." You were your work was, so to speak, on the surface secular, and yet it was nothing secular about it at all, because it was based on your purpose. And I'd like you to explore a little bit about how individuals that are non-rabbinic, that are not clergy, that are not engaged in prayer or Talmud study or any study, can feel the purpose. Because what you said was 1,000,000% true. When you feel like you're acting with purpose, you feel like you have an energy source that is deeper than your own. How does one maintain that whatever I do, I'm sanctifying, if you will, God's name?
It's a tough one to answer, Charlie, because of the simplicity in which I view the issue. I don't compartmentalize myself. And I just look at myself as a person who's here to do a job. And that job has a ton of different dimensions, but it's all driven by the same purpose. We've got a tradition. That tradition has been extant for over 5,000 years, and there's a lot of it that's set out in books, and there's a ton of it that we get through our what is called Masorah, our traditions, and that is simply what pushes me forward. I don't feel that I need to be a rabbi. I don't feel that I need to be a Torah scholar. I don't feel that anybody needs to be that in order to fulfill that such a divine and such a fundamental mission that we all have. And, I didn't make this up. Maimonides spoke at great length about it. And he probably put it in far better terms than I do, but it's an innate feeling that I have. And I'm sure that it is an innate feeling that everybody else on this show and others have in the world to greater or lesser degrees. And it might be that we just need to ponder it a little bit, maybe that's the way to get at it, through a little bit of contemplation. Maybe the good doctor's remedy of doing a little bit of exercise, maybe a little bit of yoga will help. It's very hard for me to say because, different folks, different strokes, but I just feel that it's a fundamental innate driver that we all have. And maybe it's just a question of folks refining their views on that issue.
I think that's right. I think that's exactly right. I think even the pondering and the contemplation that what I am doing, whether it's in the home or at my job or wherever I am, what I am doing is work worthy of purpose. And I think once we connect it to that, I think it takes the next level. I want to just thank you so much for, I know you're so busy. Thank you so much for joining us on the show, and we hope to get you back again. And I mean, we can probably talk for hours, and thank you for what you do and for representing us everywhere that you go and for shining your light on this world.
Well, Charlie, thank you. And my immense thanks to Project Inspire for everything that they do. And I'm very happy and willing to be on again if you guys will have me. Thank you again.
Thank you so much. What an incredible perspective for us to take with us. Just all the pieces that he was able to bring out is so critical for us. And especially when it comes to the prioritization, the team that you build around you, the purpose, sky's the limit. These are all nuggets that each and every one of us should go with. Our final guest is Susan Strauss. She's a businesswoman from Susan Strauss Design. She's which is a well-established, leading full-service design firm, creating elegant, one-of-a-kind spaces. Founded by Susan, the firm has been creating luxury living environments for clients of the most discerning tastes for over a decade. Working in several avenues, Susan Strauss design firm has been a valued team member for numerous restaurants, corporate offices, condominiums, master planned communities, senior care facilities, retail stores, and residential homes. She resides in Lakewood, New Jersey, with her husband and 5 children. Susan, welcome to the show. You hear us? We got you, I think.
Yeah, I'm on now.
Okay, wonderful. Welcome to the show.
Hi, how are you?
So tell us a little bit about you, how you got into interior design and all the incredible projects that you're working on.
Sorry, I have a bad connection here. Give me one second.
Sorry, I have a bad connection here. Give me 1 second.
As Susan gets back on, I just want to review a little bit of what we just did a second ago. We'll get Susan back on in 1 second, but I really want to just double click on the last point that Mitchell made, that at least residential with me. And but before we do that, hold on a second. I got Shabbat Shaloms. God runs this world. So as Susan gets back on, I want to wish a Shabbat. You're on?
Yes.
Okay,
Sorry
wonderful.
about that.
Not at all. So talk to us a little bit about how you got into interior design and some of the things that you work on.
Okay, so I got into interior design. It's a passion I had always as a little kid. And then I'm originally from Australia. I moved here to the States. I got married here. I found a job, and then slowly kind of led to my job led to a small interior design job, and then it kind of like flourished from there. And the projects I work on is anything that starts from like a small home renovation to a large apartment building, office buildings, whatever comes that way, we kind of it's a busy career and something I'm very proud of.
So, it's amazing because I have a little bit of experience in the real estate world, and I know that when it comes to these things, everything is deadlines. Someone needs something, and I'm sure many of your clients aren't like, yeah, get to it whenever, no problem. I'm sure it's like, let's go. I need something immediately. Deadlines like crazy.
Yeah, it's like everybody comes in and needs it yesterday. They only remember that they need it today, and it needs to be done yesterday. It's part of the stress of the job.
So how do you manage it? You thank God have a family of 5, and I can almost imagine these projects and thinking in my head, exactly right. Everybody needs everything done perfectly yesterday.
That's right. Yeah.
What are some of the techniques that you use to manage all of your time?
So a lot of it is kind of there's the time management, and it's the communication. So we start by communicating and explaining how long the process takes, and kind of not creating expectations that are impossible. If I promise something, I want to deliver, and I want to deliver it well and on time. And what we do is within the company, I'll sit down with my team, we'll discuss exactly what needs to be done, review how much time it needs, kind of for that specific project. And then I'll make the commitment to the client. And my number one rule is we meet that commitment. And if for some crazy reason it's impossible for us to meet it, I'll make sure to let them know in advance and let them know we might need an extra day or so.
1 second, I want to double click on that, because this is an important. You made it a very important point that I want to make sure everyone hears. We live in a world where everyone likes to say, yes, you got it. It'll be done yesterday. And when you say to a client, I'll take your business, and I know it's important to you, and I'm going to charge you for it. And and by the way, you can't have it yesterday. I'm going to set a date that's real, which will probably be later than you want. So help us navigate that, because that's critical. Setting expectations that will almost always disappoint the person in front of you that wants it in less time, because you know that if you don't set expectations, then the lack of realism, so to speak, will get in the way. How do you navigate around, almost, if you will, say no to people?
So the answer is making pretending something and making someone happy that is not realistic is a short-term solution. I look at building long-term relationships and building people's trust and faith in myself and my company. And that goes on a personal level as well with my kids, my family. If I say I'm going to be there, I want to do everything in my power to be there. And as soon as I start slacking on that, you lose faith in the people around you. So I'd rather tell them that if they trust me, I'll get it there, get it done when I say I'm going to get it done, rather than pretending I'm going to get it done when they want it done and they're not pulling through.
That's a great point. That's an excellent point. I think people, myself included, all of us, we like the feeling of always saying yes to everybody whenever we need it.
Right.
And we don't remember that little bit of disappointment on the front end will then play off and will pay dividends in the back end.
It's going to hurt you long term.
Let me ask you a question. You're in the creative arena, right? What you're doing really is your value, if you will, is creativity. Now, I know for myself that when you've got a million things to do, the last thing you want to be is creative, because you just got to get stuff done. So how do you balance not only getting through your day, but how do you balance maintaining the creative edge as you have all those deadlines looming?
So I think that a lot of people look at me as the creative designer. So people that have that creative mind are a little bit spazzed and not necessarily organized and on top of their game. It's something I worked on, and it's important to me because I feel like running a business and being able to balance family life and business there's nothing more important than being able to balance and creating time and space for everything. So it's hiring the right people, getting the right help, kind of allocating the right things to the right people, and ultimately getting the job done when you need to get it done.
Yeah, I think that's a critical piece to this, which is, like you said earlier, which is when you allow other people into your life, it allows you the space to get it done, and allows you to be who you're supposed to be in the moment where you're supposed to be at.
Correct. I'm a very big believer. I can't do everything myself. It's impossible. And I know what I'm good at and where my strengths are, and I know where my strengths are not. I know that there's plenty of people out there in the world that can pull through and kind of chip in the areas that I'm kind of not as savvy or good at. Let them do those things, and then I'll kind of focus on the things that I know I am good at. So even within my office, if there's certain programs and tasks that need to get done that I know I have a team member that is going to be a lot better and faster and more efficient than I am, then it makes no sense for me to be sitting there and trying to get it done diligently. If I could be putting myself and my time and my effort somewhere else where I'd be much more effective. Mm-hmm. So it's all about delegating, making sure that we're managing the time and being the most efficient that I could possibly be in every situation.
Amazing. Susan, thank you so much for joining us. An incredible, it's nice to meet you. And really the ability to do all of this while building a business is much harder than people even realize, and staying creative at the same time. Before you go, any techniques that you have for the balancing family and life? Any techniques that you have for how, when you're engaged in family time, you leave the business in the business?
So, like I said before, that I think a very big role in having my family on board with me running a large firm like I do is communication. So if I'll be, kind of coming home late one day or having a super busy day, my kids know it, my husband knows about it, of course, but my kids will know about it. They'll know that mommy's coming home late today, and they feel like they're part of my life. Like I'll tell them, I'll say, okay, today I'll be home approximately at 6 o'clock or at whatever time it is. They'll know about it, and I'll say, you can call me when you come home because I want to be talking to you. I feel like the communication that I have with them allows them to kind of be part of my life when I'm within the business world, and they feel that mommy still cares, and as much as I'm at work, I still want to be with them. And I feel like they don't resent it and they're proud of it.
Amazing.
So as long as I communicate and let everybody know exactly where I am, where I'm at, and kind of do things responsibly, the balance works out very well. And another big part of it is that when I work, I'm fully at work, but when I'm home, I'm fully at home. And when we sit down at the supper table with my husband and my kids, we're all there. My phone's not with me. I'm focused. I put all my energy towards the kids, and they know I'm all theirs. So I feel like if I'd be pretending to balance both at the same time, I wouldn't be achieving it. I wouldn't in either direction.
Yeah.
So in order to be doing best at where I'm at that current moment, I need to be focused on what I'm focusing right then and there.
Amazing. It's such an interesting and important point to, even if you're not with them, the communication, the knowledge of where you are and where you want to be allows them to be part of your world, even if they're not actively physically with you. That's an important piece that people don't understand, that as you include your loved ones in your life more, they feel like they're in your life more, even though they're not physically with you.
Exactly. Yeah. And they're proud and they want to know what's going on.
Yeah.
And I think it's the only way to kind of have a healthy balance of both and have them be proud of what I do, other than being in the family life.
Amazing. Susan, thank you so much for joining us and shining your light in this world.
And thank you, Project Inspire, for the invite.
Thank you so much. And what an incredible perspective that we just got just now. So many pieces. And if you hear some of the important themes that keep on coming back, the ability to delegate, the ability to trust people. But this is an important piece that I want to add, that Susan added amongst her other great pieces, is the idea that the communication with other people brings them in your life, even if they're not physically with you. Incredible. Before we wrap up, I want to wish a couple of Shabbat Shaloms to our loving participants, to the Silvers in Highland Park. Shabbat Shalom to Tyler, to the Bolton and Magoon family, to Michael from St. Louis. Shabbat Shalom to Ricky from Montreal, Canada. Shabbat Shalom to Mark and Michelle Mandelman. Shabbat Shalom to you guys. Shabbat Shalom to our friends, the M fam from Toronto. Shabbat Shalom to the Yaakovs in New York City. Shabbat Shalom to Mike from St. Louis and everybody who's tuning in today. Thank you so much for joining us. And really, this is what Shabbat's all about, isn't it? It's about understanding time. Understand what Shabbat's all about. What God did was he sanctified time. It's all, think about that. Where else do you have the sanctification of time? Usually property is sanctified, a temple. Usually objects are sanctified. People are sanctified. But I think I saw this in Heschel once. What God gave the world through Shabbat was he added a new dimension of sanctification. He sanctified time. Now you walk into Friday, and as it changes into Shabbat, something happens. It's an amazing concept. Time gets sanctified. You can't put your hands on it, but it's different because God's teaching us. Time doesn't control you. You can sanctify time, which means that you can control it. You can have an ownership, if you will, over it. You can't stop it. You can't guarantee how much of it you got, but you have the ability to shape it, to form it, to stretch it, and to infuse me in it. That's what Shabbat teaches us. When we go into Shabbat, it reminds us that, wait a second, I have a lot more control over my time than I think. And if I approach it the way these people that are, if you notice something interesting about what we just did, each person was so thoughtful. They weren't like, I don't know, it just happens. It doesn't just happen. How I'm present, how I communicate, how I prioritize, how I delegate, how I train, how I feel the purpose of what I'm doing. Each person from tonight's show was thoughtful about their time, understood that they had to insert themselves, if you will, on their time. And that gave them the clarity to how to do it for their lives. There's no one answer for how to multitask or how to manage your time. The answer is to be involved, to be thoughtful. And some of these nuggets tonight, if we just run with them, it may take us 10%, 20%, 30% more effective, which can do so much for our lives. So this Shabbat, as we think about what God did for us when he sanctified time, let's ask ourselves, what can we do to sanctify time? What can we do to infuse our time with more purpose? To be more thoughtful of how we use our time? To be more thoughtful in what we want to accomplish and how our time adapts to that? Each of us, each week, can get a little bit wiser, a little bit more efficient, and accomplish a little bit more of our purpose in this world. Sorry again for the technical difficulties tonight, but thanks for sticking with us to the end. And on behalf of me and mine to you and yours, I wish you a Shabbat Shalom. I hope that next week we'd see each other in Jerusalem, but if not, hope to see you here. So on behalf of all of us here at Project Inspire, we wish you an incredible weekend, a good Shabbos, and of course, a Shabbat Shalom.
We together call it shoot. With every generation, they take one raising the haters. Then Hashem hit the pavement, blazing the savers. Till the world asks where they went. Patience are faithless. The Torah gave the whole world a facelift. If hatred is baseless, we take it, erase it, and exchange it for that master goal. We don't forget wherever we may go. There is only one place we know, and it's called Zero. We won.
Pieces and you're just falling down, falling down. I'll pick you up, and if you feel like you're outnumbered on a